Hello everybody, welcome back to the Podcast. Danny here, and today we're going to be talking about Girl the Wilds. So this is a manhwa that is in Webtoons. If you remember that website, that we just did an episode about Lookism, that's on there, as well as Tower of God. We've talked about that before, and a bunch of other manhwas that's just, pretty big. If it's a big manhwa, it's more than likely to be here on Webtoons, and this is one of them. It ran for 5 years, from 2011 to 2016, weekly, and of course it's a manhwa, so we got color pages, we have some fantastic art, and an interesting premise. So I'm gonna get into the premise of what this manhwa is about, and then kind of talk about two mangas that I've read that are very similar to this, and we'll go from there. So the main premise is our main character is Jaegu, and his father died. He got really sick, and his mother decided to leave home. However, she left behind Jaegu's younger siblings, they're twins. And so he is now stuck taking care of them, and he just graduated middle school. And so now he's on his way to high school. And it's a close high school, full scholarship, and he's like, okay, cool, and it's called Wild High. And he's thinking, okay, this is a weird name, but sure, let's go in. And we find out that this used to be an all-female school that just became co-ed. He's the only male student there, and of course, all the females are very proficient in martial arts. And so that is the main premise, and of course, I have to add that he also gets bullied. And he wants to overcome that, his fear, his weakness, physically and mentally. And that's pretty much the basics of what this manhwa was about. Now, there's two mangas that really came to mind when I was reading this manhwa. The first one I want to talk about is Dragon's Riding. So Dragon's Riding is a manga. I don't remember if I did a episode on it. I don't think I did. But the main premise is it's the same thing. Guy goes to a new high school. Turns out that they just became co-ed, and he is one of the only male characters there, and they're all proficient at fighting. And then we have History's Strongest Disciple, Kenichi, one of my favorite mangas of all time. And in that premise, he gets bullied a lot, and he wants to learn how to fight. So he decides to try to train himself, like how he sees in the movies. This girl shows up, says, hey, why don't you train over here at my house? It's like a dojo, essentially. It's full of different types of martial art masters. And throughout that manga, he learns various techniques and becomes a master at some point of various martial arts. And so with that in mind, that's what I thought this manga was going to be. It was going to be Kenichi and Dragon's Riding put together. And that's what I really wanted out of this, because it popped out really strong, amazing art. The direction was fantastic. The way he used negative space in this manhwa is really good. He gives a faded glow effect on the white backgrounds when it's just solo characters and shots to give the art an even brighter, more cleaner look, as you could say. And, our main character, he's tired of being bullied, so he gets trained, by these girls that ends up becoming some of his best friends at the school. And they're like, oh, wow, he's showing real promise, he has a good body condition. Like, everything is top-notch with this guy. Like, he can actually do it. And there's some, like, this boxer from a different school fights him. He's like, man, what the heck did they train him? What did they do to him in 1 month to where he got this good? And, he wasn't as good as keeping up with everybody else, but in 1 month, it's a big surprise. And it's like, oh, he's picking up on things. They're asking him questions about matches, and he's just very, very observant. I'm like, okay, so this is where we're going with, it's like Kenichi route. He was weak and feeble, but then as he trained, it just becomes easier for him to do all the things that he does. And that's what I think was interesting, is like, oh, the fight styles, we get to see so many different variations. And that's what I was expecting here in Girl the Wilds. But that is not what happens here. In a sense, kind of, but I don't know. It threw me in a loop, I guess. It caught me off guard. It went a completely different direction. It just became more of the slice of life aspect where, oh man, this guy Jaegu is surrounded by these female characters, Dal and her nickname is Queen. And, they both have a crush for Jaegu, and it's just like, well, what do we do? And then plus, like, the school's doing this weird thing. It's like, well, since he's the male character, or the only male student here at school, and, we realize, being feminine is important to all you young ladies, you get bonus points if you hang out with this guy. And so now the whole school, at first, it was like they're all really trying to get at him, and I guess only really his classroom, because he hangs out with older girls, right? A year older than them. That's just how he met them, and he became friends. And so, all the girls in his class are trying to get at him, really just to hang out to get extra points for your grading system and all that. And on top of that all, again, he's struggling because he has to go to school, he has to go to work, and then take care of his siblings, and just, that cycle pretty much. And as this type of school, it's very high regarded in its martial arts and all that. So, of course, there's a bunch of characters who are very wealthy. Queen, in fact, is one of the wealthiest there. And they go on these crazy adventures, these crazy situations. And at the end of the day, I read all of it, 260 chapters. I wanted to see where it was going to go, what kind of story is it trying to tell. And at the end, I think it's just all right. The art, it can be great when he wants it to be. It's like, there are most times where the art is simplified or it's chibi just for the sake of not putting in that extra detail because there's really no point, which I can give him a point for that. But sometimes it's like, man, it really changes how the characters kind of look here and there. It gets and then it's very comedic, very the first like chapter or two, like the first little arc, like pretty serious, little to no humor. It's really establishing this world, the characters, what Jaegu, our main point of view, is going to do with the rest of his school life. And then it cuts to, once we got comfortable with that, changes to just a bunch of humor and comedy and classic tropes that you see in manhwas and mangas that I could care less for. Sure, I didn't mind most of it. I did chuckle at a couple because they were pretty funny. But most of the time, just like, there's just too much unnecessary humor that I felt just, you could have really gotten into more plot stuff here. And eventually, reading it, towards the back end, it starts to get more serious. For the wrong reasons. I think anyways, because it's called Girl the Wild. You start off this manga with these, like, Olympian level teenagers fighting each other in a ring. And then the most serious parts of the manhwa towards the end is our main character, Jaegu, struggling on whether or not he should date a girl. And a bunch of romance stuff. And I don't know, man. I want to say it tricked me, but at the same time, it's like, well, I guess this was expected. And my biggest disappointment in this manhwa overall is we saw our main character train, and everyone's saying, hey, he's got promise, he's actually doing pretty good. And that's what I thought. I'm like, oh, he's going to continue training, he's going to get stronger, get better, because every other arc-ish, a situation happens, and they're pretty much, it's almost a tournament every other arc, and he's the weakest link out of everybody. So you would think his motivation would be to get his stuff in gear and really push himself to be better, to be stronger, so that way he doesn't have to rely on them and they don't have to worry about him. And that's just not really there. He has no motivation to get any stronger than he is now, which is crazy because he fought, like, at one point there's like this underground fighting ring that they got tangled with in the plot, and he fought the number 1 and number 2 seed of this tournament, like the top two dogs out of all these men. These are men, that these teenagers are fighting, and he's struggling, like he's ready to pass out, this and that. And at that point, I'm like, see, like, why aren't you convincing yourself you need to get stronger? It would make sense, because I have to get stronger so I can protect these ladies, because one's a typical trope where she's madly in love with me, but plays it off in a joyous, childish way, in a sense, jokingly, as you will. And then the other one's this cold, serious character who very rarely shows her nice side, her friendly side, and he wants to protect them, and that's just not present here. It's unfortunate to see. I mean, it was great. So one character gets kidnapped, and like that's when he gets serious, and that's what I've been wanting from him most of the manhwa. It's like, where is the guy that needs to do these steps to become who he wants to be, who he has to be? It's just not there. And I don't know. I mean, I think it's all right. The ending I felt it's a very typical thing, I want to say, for Koreans to do, because I remember I read Unbalance from the Freezing mangakas, but they're Korean, and the way that ending went is very similar to how this one went. And I've read Sweet Guy as well, another manhwa, and it kind of ended similar to this. So it's kind of a trope when it comes to when you get more towards slice of life, I guess, for these web comics. So again, that's interesting, and it did get serious. However, that's not what I signed up for when I read the first chapter. And all he really does, and that's another thing too, is this is a school where fighting is like the main subject of your education. He's friends with a kickboxer, taekwondo queen, can just, don't even know what her technique is. He meets like some weapon people from like a Shaolin temple. This girl with glasses who knows wushu. And then, they meet other characters who do other techniques. Like I think Muay Thai was one, and he even starts doing grappling, like jujitsu and all that. And he doesn't use a lot. Like he never does anything else with it. All he does is just box. That's all we see him train with. And I don't know, like, again, there's good stuff here. I think really showing his struggle at one point was great, him hitting the hard reality, because he eventually got comfortable by being spoiled by these characters who are helping him, taking care of his siblings, the financials, food, and he thought, and he's a simple guy and he has bigger things to think about, so he doesn't really understand the motives behind these situations, especially with one female who's just really trying to date this guy. And yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. I say give it a chance, for sure. It is interesting. Again, the art style is amazing when it wants to be, especially the stylization he does every now and then is really good. It's like this messy stencil art with some nice vibrant colors that really show how intense a match can be. And then every character that becomes important gets their own little arc, and Jaegu's there to help resolve it, or he's involved with it somehow. And other than that, just give it a couple arcs, because it does change pretty early on into what majority of the manhwa is. There are loose ends in the plot, and some characters grow, but it doesn't feel like character progression, which is also interesting. And other than that, it was funny because I was reading it. I didn't even know it ended, but the last arc I was reading, I was like, is this ending? It feels like it's ending. It was very clear when this was going to end. So there's that too. But yeah, again, it's 260 chapters. It takes a little while to read, man. Not gonna lie. Manhwas just decide to have a lot of dialogue, a lot of pages per chapter, which I give them huge props for because, again, it's all in color. It's weekly. Like, oh my gosh, man. We were just talking about it in the Lookism episode, if you listened to that already, just complaining about how Marvel Studios can get some stuff wrong, or Marvel Comics, with their art direction, with their writing, and that's on a monthly basis with a big team. And like, I think this is just a team of 2 or 3 people working on this. They also have physical volumes. I don't know if they're translated in English though. I have to look it up. But other than that, guys, that is all I have to say about Girl the Wilds. And I mean, okay, and I guess that's another thing too, right? The title is Girl the Wilds. It's a weird translation, but the name itself, they go to a high school called Wilds High, and then these are just girls who do martial arts. I was expecting a lot more fighting than slice of life, than this romantic comedy aspect, and this surrealism that characters show, I mean, sure, there's a lot of fights, but they all start and they all end kind of the same way. There's really no variation when, like, pretty much every arc that has fights are tournaments. And it starts off with, oh, here's a situation. We have these characters fighting, and it's just like, whoa, wait, hold on, guys, hold on. I know you guys are here to try to mess with us. You're the bad guys, this and that. But if you really want to fight, let's go into the gym, and then we'll use the ring, and we'll take turns fighting each other. And whichever side wins. And yeah, there's a lot of ones that do that, and then some of them just, they don't make sense sometimes. It's like, why are you guys agreeing to this? Like, it's just a brawl. It's going to be a brawl, And yeah, there's just a lot of other stuff going on in the manhwa that, I think I'll give it props to, because the world building is good. It has a good tempo to it, nothing too fast or too slow when exploring new areas or introducing newer characters. Eventually we do get our main cast for a good while, and it's just, that's when all the humor and stuff is going on right there. And there is one character that shows up early on that is very interesting, has a good character design, and she never shows up again, pretty much. She shows up at the end, maybe, but yeah, she's rarely in there. And that's also another thing, too. The character designs are really good. Dal, the Taekwondo lady, she wears a gi, and she always wears cat ears, and she has, short hair. She's blonde. And then we have the kickboxer, Moon Yang, I think it is. And, she has red hair. It's always tied up in a bun. She's either in a tracksuit, or she's like in a sports bra with the track pants, always practicing training. And then we have Queen with her elegant clothes, with her long blonde hair, with her near white skin, and perfect complexion and all that. So we do get some pretty good variations with characters, and then we get one that's kind of comedic, and it plays a trope pretty far into the manhwa, I would say. And I think that's all I have to say today, guys. Girl the Wilds. Again, at the end of the day, I'm like, yeah, it's all right. I was hoping it went a different direction at the end, but that's I guess what the manhwakas or whatever you say for the authors. This is the direction they wanted to go, which I don't want to say it's a waste of a premise, because there are some good stuff again here, but once they started pushing away from what the title suggests, I think that's definitely when I was starting to check out. So yeah, go check it out, guys. Let me know what you think. Remember, you can email us at unversedpodcast@gmail.com for those question, comments, concerns. And if you want to stay updated with us, go to social media, anywhere you go, at unversedpodcast. We update you on episodes over there, and we'll be posting at the next con we'll be at, which is LA Comic-Con, the week this episode comes out, coming out in a few days. So if you're going to be there, swing by and say hi. Again, we're going to be posting, let you guys know we're there and all that good stuff. I'll be cosplaying, so you'll probably see that too. And yeah, that's it for today, guys. Thank you as always for listening, and we will talk to you next time.
Cha-ra-ra-ra, 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 chan cha-ra-ra-ra, chan cha-ra-ra-ra-ra-ra-ra-ra-ra-ra-ra-ra, chan chan。ジャックが仲間になった。